Today, we're going to pit AI against humans to answer the internet's most burning software company questions. So I have here a list of questions that I wrote out. I have 3 different questions, and we're going to put these into Google. We're going to look at Google Autocomplete's first response. We're going to answer that question. And then we're going to go over to ChatGPT and have it answer the same question. We're going to see what I missed, what ChatGPT missed, and how human answers hold up versus AI answers. So to get started here, we're going to start with how do software companies, see what is the internet asking? How do software companies make money? How do software companies, that's what everyone on the internet wants to know. How do software companies make money? Most of them don't. Most software startups don't actually end up making any money. And the ones that do, a lot of the times that comes from venture capital, startup funds, and then selling your company. I think what people are really asking here, to be serious, is the different what you call monetization models for software companies. So things like subscription-based services where you pay monthly or yearly versus buy at once or microtransactions. But the reality is for most software companies, especially the ones that are starting out up into mid-sized companies before you get into raising funds or selling your company, the goal isn't necessarily actually to make money for a lot of those companies. The goal is to acquire users. And so you see a lot of companies out there that are actually operating, especially through their first few rounds of funding, at a complete loss. Their goal is to just bring in as many users as they can, bring in as much data, as many people, and then offload that, sell that company to somebody else who can figure out how to monetize that user base. Twitter was a great example of that, right? Twitter was unable to monetize their system for a really long time. And that's really interesting because what that means is their goal is really about getting data. It's about getting a lot of people's data so that they can sell their company and somebody else can figure out how to monetize it, sell to it, whatever that is. I have a feeling that's not going to be the side of things that ChatGPT answers. So let's take a look. How do software companies make money, right? Again, I think the real answer here is actually going to be along the lines of, microtransactions, subscription services, buy it once type of thing, or even like enterprise licensing deals, right? So things like when you or I purchase or when you or I subscribe to something like ChatGPT, for an example, right? We pay a set fee. I think it's $15 a month, something like that. If I click sign up for free, what's it? It's gonna want me to log in. Pricing. Yeah. So for instance, for you or I to get a ChatGPT account, it's $200 a month, right? For a company, say Microsoft, well, Microsoft's a bad example. They have their own AI. Say JP Morgan, or Chase Bank or something wants to come in here and use ChatGPT. They go here, they contact sales. They don't just buy a set amount of seats. They have an enterprise license, an enterprise contract, where they negotiate what their terms are going to be, what their usage is going to be, how many seats, right? They're not paying, $150 a year or 20 times 12, right? So $240 a year. They're paying $240,000 plus a year, right? They have a lot of different seats, and then they have specific requirements, different usage requirements. So even here, they outline special things that are coming along with it. Enterprise level security and controls, right? Analytics for your users, data privacy, domain name stuff, things like that. So that's another business model for selling your software. And a lot of times it comes along with the other models, but if you're selling to individual users, what's called B2C, business to consumer, customer, right? Then you have your one model where they're paying, $10, $20 a month or whatever. And B2B, business to business, where the businesses might be buying an enterprise license and you have that entire sales process where you're negotiating what you're giving them and what they're getting back in return, right? Maybe they require on-site hosting. Can't be in the cloud, right? For security reasons, things like that. And so those enterprise sales are another way that software companies make money. So let's see what ChatGPT says here. Common ways, selling licenses, pay once. That's the common. Has been the majority of business models for the majority of time that software has been around, right? You buy a computer game or an older version of Microsoft Office, pay it once, own it, right? Classic method. Subscriptions, especially for cloud services, that has gotten more popular. Freemium, That's a fantastic thing that I didn't mention. Freemium and ads. Freemium means you start with a free model. It's what we're using right here with ChatGPT, right? We're not logged in. We're using this for free. The goal is that you'll like it so much, that you'll use it so much, that you'll want to sign up for an actual paid account, freemium, right? Free into premium. Supported by ads. This one's kind of dying these days because ad blockers have become so popular. It's one of the reasons why you've seen YouTube kind of switch their model to so many other different, like relying on different aspects of their platform than necessarily ads, or even upping the amount of ads that users without ad blockers are seeing. In-app purchases, things like microtransactions, right? There's always a lot of talk around microtransactions, enterprise contracts, selling data. That's another way that a lot of companies make money. That's a really good point to bring up. Usually this happens alongside a lot of the other models, but oftentimes if you do have a free application, that means what they're really doing is they're collecting all your data and selling that on the back end. I have another video about that up here somewhere. And then open source applications, that doesn't make money, but you can potentially raise funds, do Kickstarters, things like that. Yeah, that's a really good overview of what different ways software makes money. I think the important thing here, though, to take away is that what software seems to be doing to make money isn't necessarily what their end goal is, right? Especially if their goal is that acquisition, like I talked about earlier. Bringing in the subscribers, even at a loss, is what their goal is, and then kind of offloading the problem of how to monetize this to somebody else. So let's look at our second question here. Let's look at why do software companies, why do tech companies skip 9? I think what they're referring to is why so many companies skip the version 9 on their software. So like iOS, Windows, things like that, why they skip over. They'll do, version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then skip to number 10. I'm going to assume that that's what the question is here. And that's a really funny thing to ask, but it's true. And this is less to do with tech as it does to do with just kind of a psychological marketing thing with versioning. On the marketing side, using versions to sell new features is a common sales and upsell tactic, right? You say, cool, this is what's new with version 5. This is what's new with version 6. Version 9, and this has been studied, really doesn't have as much of a psychological impact as earlier versions or version 10. So you're kind of getting less out of it. And so a lot of companies just opt for version 9 doesn't sound very good. We're just going to go right to version 10. That sounds like a big upgrade. That's like, we're going to put a lot into this. People are going to be really excited. Version 10, skipping to double digits. It's a big deal. Or even version X, right? Instead of 10. And so that's why a lot of companies tend to skip over that number 9. It's less about a tech thing and more just a psychological marketing thing. So we're going to ask ChatGPT the same question. So what was it? Why do tech companies skip 9? I'm curious what ChatGPT is going to give the answer here. Skip the number 9 in part. Okay, so I came to the same conclusion I did. Windows skipping version 9. Older software sometimes check the operating system name using shortcuts like Windows 95 or 98. Calling system Windows 9 could be mistaken for this older versions. I've heard this theory before. I don't buy it. I've never seen these kind of shortcuts actually happen or be an issue. And if they are, it's a really, like, you just go back and you fix that before you do your release. I haven't seen this be an actual blocker to a release or any issue ever. Marketing and psychology. Honestly, I think that's the big one. 10 sounds like a big leap or milestone, while 9 can seem incremental. Yeah, absolutely. Apple skipped 9, Windows skipped 9, brand positioning goes into that marketing and psychology, symbolism 9 10 as opposed to 9. But yeah, it's a really common thing, and I guess it's so common that it's the number 1 autocomplete for why do software companies. All right, so going back to our list here, our last question, what software companies will benefit from AI? I swear I did not front load these questions. I'm in an incognito window. That's a great question. That is the question that everyone everyone is asking right now, right? Why, what software companies will benefit from AI? And to be honest, if you had that answer, if you knew for a fact, you'd be a millionaire or more, a billionaire, right? But everyone, right, we're in a position right now where everyone is rushing to implement AI in their systems. And so who's actually going to win out and actually benefit from that, and who it's going to flop for, that's the big question, because everyone's doing it differently. And there's a lot of question right now as to whether or not AI is a bubble. And I think that's a really interesting take on this too, because whether or not AI is a bubble is to some degrees not relevant. When you talk about bubbles, the big thing you talk about is, or refer to as the dot-com bubble, right? When the dot-com bubble burst, that was huge. It was a huge tech bubble burst, the dot-com bubble. But the technology behind the dot-com bubble, right? Dot-com, just because that bubble burst, that's still, right? That is still the cornerstone technology of the internet. Dot-coms are everywhere. Everything is still a dot-com. So yes, that dot-com bubble burst, those companies died, lost value, whatever it is. But if you follow that through to today, it's more valuable now than at the peak of that bubble. So if ChatGPT if AI, is a bubble, just because it is a bubble doesn't mean the technology isn't valid and won't be worth even more someday in the future. So really the question is just how reliant on you on the core technology versus on the bubble itself. And I think that's where that's where I would answer this question, is if you are using AI as, an inflationary tactic, as a sales tool, as look at all the things we do with AI, those companies are not going to benefit from AI in the long run. But if you're utilizing AI tools and actually inside your workflow to improve your systems, to speed up your development process, to make your development process more reliable and more robust, and you're actually utilizing the core technology and not just kind of the hype around it, those are the companies that are going to really benefit from AI. And there's ways, benefiting from AI isn't just, it doesn't have to be this big grandiose thing. You can benefit from AI by using it to do really just automate really simple, kind of simple, stupid solutions that you just don't want to have to waste time doing, right? Really easy things that it's not worthwhile necessarily spending human resources, human assets, human time and hours to do something that AI can just do, and it's something that nobody wants to do anyway. So let's go over to ChatGPT and ask it what software companies will benefit from AI. And I think this is, and it's interesting, we're asking the AI who's going to benefit from AI. So maybe there might be a little bit of inherent bias here, and that's going to be something that's important to think about anytime you're using any type of these chat or AI systems, is understand where the answers are coming from and how it came to that answer, because inherent bias isn't just a human thing. It's been proven over and over again that AI has its own biases as well, even if it's just a bias based on the data set that it learned from. So here, many software companies are likely to benefit from AI, but in different ways. Here's a clear, student-friendly, interesting, thinks I'm a student, breakdown by category with examples. So big tech, enterprise, developer. Pretty much, I think what it's saying here is everyone's going to benefit from AI. And surprise, surprise, AI itself thinks that everyone will benefit from AI. And again, I think this goes back to the point of just be careful when you're using systems like ChatGPT, like Copilot. Understand that all of this is just kind of reiterating information that it learned elsewhere. It does have its own inherent biases. And I think AI, of course, is going to be a little bit biased towards AI. But that is nonetheless still an interesting takeaway from that question. So I hope you enjoyed this video, or at least got something interesting out of it. I enjoyed doing it in a little bit of a different format to maybe learn and ask some questions. But if you did enjoy the video, drop the video a like, subscribe to the channel. I'm planning on doing more things like this, probably, hopefully more often. Now that it's 2026, I'm focusing more time on this channel. So join in, follow along, and stick around, because there will be more coming really soon.